What is happening, Grace Auburn Church family? You are back on the Grace Auburn Church podcast with me. My name is Lee, and I serve as the host of this podcast and one of our pastors on staff. Today, I am joined by member Jenna Le Hamilton. Jenna Le, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Lee.
All right, we are continuing a series called Faithfulness in a Fallen World, and the idea is really pretty simple. It's, hey, what are our people facing? Where are they wrestling with the things of this world, in the world, and how can we shine the light of and the hope of the gospel into certain places? Maybe begin conversations for folks that they've not yet had, don't know that they can have, aren't entirely sure how to talk about certain things with the hope of Jesus and the hope of the gospel. And today we are going to look at what a biblical framework is for body image, for the way the Lord has made us, uniquely wired and designed as sons and daughters of God. We all bear his image, but the world would convince us of so many other things that are untrue, whether that be comparison or it be any number of things about how we perceive ourselves. Paul is pretty expressly clear, as I think about the series as we've gone through it, that we're born into a world that has distorted so many things. But the image of God in us and in the world is clearly one of those things. And so when he tells the Romans, or when he appeals to them and says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Do not be conformed, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. I read that, I hear that, and there's something inside of me that goes, Paul knew that we had already been shaped by this world, and that there was something profoundly, fundamentally needed in our souls and in our minds and in our hearts to be transformed towards the kingdom and away from the world. As we think about it, and as we jump into this conversation today, Jenna Le, I'd love to just maybe begin with a little bit of introduction in terms of you and your husband Brooks, and you're coming in here to Grace Auburn Church. And maybe if that's in brief, really kind of why this subject today of biblical body image is as near and dear to your heart as it is. Why do you think it's such an important topic for the church to talk about? Why do you think it's one of those topics that's good for us to include in this Faithfulness in a Fallen World series? So, yeah, I'll let you jump in, cool, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Lee. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yeah,
I was
absolutely
honored to be asked. My name is Jenna Le Hamilton, and I got married to Brooks Hamilton, as you know, because you were there marrying us.
I was there.
Indeed.
I was there.
In May of 2025, so just this past May. So we're coming up on a year. And I work as a registered dietitian. And I think a lot of the reason that I got into the field that I got into was because I have struggled with this issue of knowing how to view my body and my relationship with my body in a way that honors the Lord. I hadn't really heard many teachings on that, and it really wasn't until I got into my own struggles with my relationship with food that I ended up meeting with a dietitian, and she was a believer, and she really gave me a framework on this, and it's become a passion of mine, just learning, like, what does the body say? I mean, what does the Bible say about our bodies? I just love that you started with that Romans 12, 1-2. Like, we are all going to be discipled by something, and it's a question of who and what are we being discipled by.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of us as Christians do still feel that yucky tension with our bodies, because, it's not always a topic that there's great teaching around. And there's a lot of just casual talk around our bodies. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation today and to learn, Yeah.
Yeah, I think just the idea that you're following a rabbi, you're following a teacher, you believe a certain set of things, whether you believe it or not, and it shapes the way you see everything. So let's make the assumption that there are a kind of a spectrum of people listening to the podcast who are, fully committed to Jesus and have great understanding of how the Lord has made them. And then there are others who are like, I don't really think that the Lord cares about my body at all. The Bible speaks so much to what the body that we've been given is and why it matters. So let me ask that question to begin with. What does the Bible actually say about bodies and about being made the way that we're made?
Yeah. So the first time we see the body, the human body, Genesis.
Yes.
Right? Genesis 1:31, God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. We are made in God's image. We're made in the Imago Dei. So we are all made to create, we're all made to reflect the image of God. And with that too, all of the attributes of God, he's so creative. And so there's going to be diversity in our shapes and sizes of bodies. We're intricately made. We have hormones and hunger and fullness cues and preferences, taste buds, all of these things. We can create new life inside of us, by his mercy. And that just, again, makes me think of the Psalm 139, he knit us together in our mother's womb. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. I also think it's really cool to think about how Jesus came in a human body and how he literally knows what it's like to wear our human flesh. And I was thinking about this too, the Bible describes really not a ton about his human description. We just knew he was nothing, quote, quote, that the world would behold as beautiful.
Yeah, sure.
Yet he's the most beautiful person that we could possibly imagine. So long story short, I would say that, the body really does matter a lot to the Lord. And I think part of that too is we come back in resurrection bodies. Yeah. And so that's pretty cool. I think it's really good. And I know we'll get into this in the discussion, though, to differentiate between being a good steward of our body and being obsessed with our body, and letting them become idols. So I can dive into that, or we can kind of chat around it.
No, I think I think it'd be, why don't you just go ahead and run that route? You've jumped into it. I think it's good. Just as we think about the kind of, there's just two extremes there, right? It can become the thing that I worship and I obsess over, or it could be the thing that I'm just reminded of on a daily basis, that this is something that the Lord has given me that is a gift that I should care for well.
Right.
And how we honor the Lord with our bodies, how we submit our bodies to the Lord. Paul says that it is a spiritual act of worship that we would offer our bodies as living sacrifices. Meaning there's decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis with how we steward and care for what he has given us, and that's our bodies, that's our time, that's our treasure, that's everything. But there is a way in which we do so that honors him, and there's a way in which we do so that attempts to honor us. So I think that what that does, and if we might get back to that, I think that really sets up the question, why is this such an issue? Why do we struggle with the things that we struggle with? Why do we struggle specifically as Christians, or even as Christians, with the idea of shame, or I wish X, Y, or Z about my body, or, even all the way down to, talking with my children about how, they can't wait to be full grown so that they can be, 6'1", 6'2". And if I'm not 6'1" or 6'2", then something's wrong with me. I'm like, well, I got bad news for you, bro. I'm 5'8". I don't know that we're going to get there. God willing, you got all things your mother's genes on that side. But even something as simple as that, it really, even at a young age, starts to set them on a trajectory of how I view my body matters.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you brought that part up. Yeah. I think, culture plays,
Yeah.
how do you say that? Culture.
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 There it is.
Culture informs the way that we have beauty standards. And obviously that's changing all the time, from decade to decade, as we see diet culture. That's a huge one. That's why Brooks and I were talking about that the other night, just how you can see literally from the decades, trends to trends. In the 90s, everything was fat free. And then the 2000s, everything was, carb free, and then blah, 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 and so on and so forth. So diet culture, really a lot of glorification of a very certain type of body, right? Comparison, social media.
Oof.
Oh, it's so hard, right?
Well, and social media will be its own. We can talk about it today for sure because of the way it impacts the way we view our bodies. But it is its own episode of this series down the road of, how do we engage it? Should we engage it? What are ways that we can do so in a way that is honoring to the Lord? Is it good and right for everybody to engage it, or is it good and right at times to be done with it entirely? I think it probably depends on how you're wrestling, struggling, what you're going through, maybe seasons of your life. But yeah, comparison, social media.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. One that I see and hear a lot is moralizing food and bodies, really using a lot of moralistic language.
Like you should.
Yes, you should do this, or I'm good for eating this, or I'm bad for eating, this. I mean, we even see it in our marketing, right? Like this is a guilt-free treat, or like a sinful chocolate cake, or
I deserve
this. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like that seems harmless, but it also communicates this false message that we don't believe in as believers, that I become more or less righteous, or more or less clean, or more good or more bad based on what I eat or what my body looks like. And that's just not true. I think it's very easy then to absorb the idea that like my body is a project to fix rather than a gift from the Lord.
That is such a good way to think of it. We get one go around, right? We get one body, one life that we get to live. We are responsible for stewarding all components of it. There's something that, the Puritans in the 15th, 16th century were famous for, that when they thought about discipleship and they thought about following the way of the Lord, they actually used Proverbs 4:23, this idea of protecting the wellspring of your life, that is the heart. So when we hear the phrase "guard your heart," you might think of like, I kissed dating goodbye from the 90s and 2000s of guarding your heart and how I'm supposed to guard her heart and I'm responsible for guarding mine. And the only thing Scripture says is that I'm responsible for protecting and keeping my own heart. And the way in which we do that is by reminding ourselves of what the gospel actually says. What does the gospel say about my identity? What does the gospel say about my responsibilities? And for the point of today's conversation, what does the gospel have to say about how I'm made and about my body? And how does that then, being reminded of that, how does that really protect my heart? How does it guard me against the temptations of this world? And so I guess that question for you, how does the gospel change, impact, shape the way not only you think about your own, but the way you talk about with, whether it be other sisters in Christ or it be in your home? How does it impact, or maybe how should we think about it in terms of parenting and having conversations with our kids, sons and daughters, both and? What does the gospel have to say? How does it shape the way, in contrasting that with the way of the world?
Yeah.
What does it have to say about it?
Yeah, that is so good. I'm truly, as I'm thinking about this and like kind of unraveling that in my head as well, like I believe what it really does, it's like, okay, the world is going to communicate that what you do, is going to determine your moral standing or your goodness or your righteousness. And I mean, even the diet culture, even the appearance thing, like, oh, yeah, if you look like this, then you'll get more approval. If you don't look like this, things won't go. And I think, like, the truth that we need to embody as Christians is that, like, our identity is always a beloved child of God. Our identity is not wrapped up in our appearance. And I think the way we modeled this to children and the younger generation, and I mean, even to our neighbors, like, really checking ourselves too, of like, how do I talk about my own body? How do I talk about other people's bodies? How do I even describe food? Like, do I call it good or bad? Like, the Lord, like, he says you can't call anything bad that or unclean, I guess is the word, right?
Yeah.
It almost reminds me of the Pharisees, like trying to establish a righteousness of their own, and I think that sometimes when we are too influenced by diet culture or body, obsession, all of that, it's like, we need to check our hearts. Like, am I doing this because I think it will make me a better person, more righteous, more clean, or is it because I'm trying to steward my body in a way that glorifies the Lord so that I can do what he's called me to do? Like, we truly are called to embody freedom in Christ. So that means, like, less body checking, like receiving food with gratitude, moving our bodies with joy, like I heard this one time, but like, being fit for his kingdom. Like, if it truly is a joyful hobby to go to the gym, great, like, and all of that. But like, it's not necessarily required to glorify God.
That's good.
Like
100%.
Yeah, like, we can, it is good. We were made to move and things like that. But it doesn't have to be this hardcore thing to do what he has called us to do.
Yeah.
But I think our words is the biggest thing, really cleaning up the way that we speak to ourselves and about ourselves and about other people's bodies. Yeah,
that's good. I mean, I think if we can begin with, really in so many areas, but even in this as well, that my acceptance by God is not based on my performance.
Yes.
It's not based on, did I get in every run that I expected to? Did I go to the gym enough? Do I look a certain way? And it does feel like, I feel like most people, and you can kind of check me on this, most people live with this tension of, no, I do understand that I am not earning my salvation.
Yes.
I think at the end of the day, outside of, maybe a small minority, we recognize, okay, yes, I'm known by and loved by Jesus. And yet there are seasons in our lives where our words and how we view ourselves and the way we view the gym and our relationship with it or unhealthy relationship with it, it starts to encroach on, we say this thing that we believe, but then we put such an emphasis on certain things that, oh man, do I actually worship this? Or do I worship him?
Right. It's like the posture of your heart.
Yeah, and I think we can go back and forth. I think we're one day we may be in a really healthy place. And I kind of want to just say this is it's okay, and Jesus knows that there are moments and days where, we have a great relationship with our body. We have a great relationship with the way we see it and the way we feel like we're seen by him. And then there may be days or weeks where it's like, no, I'm a train wreck on this front because I don't know how to receive both the gift of grace that is I am saved by grace through faith. I am given new life in him. And I believe that it is true that God looks on the heart of a man, not on outward appearances. Like, all those things are true. I can believe all those things. And yet my actions, my disposition, my words, my self-words, my words to others, they say something very different. So I don't know. I would love for you. We've talked a lot about things the Word says and things that the world says. What would you say to someone who's just wrestling with that tension? Yeah. Like the back and forth of, man, I know these things are true, and yet my life continues to look like this. How would you encourage them?
Okay. I have a couple thoughts.
Yeah.
I think. Can I say my dietitian? Yeah, I'm going to say my dietitian thoughts and because they all coincide, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
Like
Yes.
it all bleeds together.
Yeah, say both.
Okay. So I think as far as speaking as fellow believers, right? Like we have to choose which masters we're going to serve. Like you can't serve two masters, right? But there is that genuine question of there are many people that are like, well, no, I do. I want to be able to take care of my body for the glory of God. I want to steward my body. Like are really asking that question. Like it's not about obsession. It's not about oh, how can I be more acceptable? It's like, oh, I really do just want to steward my body well. And I have no idea what that looks like because there's so many teachings in this world, and today carbs are bad, and tomorrow this is that and this is that, and it just is always changing. And so people are confused, and it makes sense, and it's again easy to fall for things that don't work, and then you do become obsessed, and it's a whole thing,
right?
So I mean, I'm just going to kind of speak to a couple things here, because the Lord talks about health, and
Yep.
I think also the Lord is the creator of science and our bodies. And so who better to know about how our bodies work than the Lord, obviously, right?
Obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one thing though that I like to remind people of, and my clients, is health in and of itself, is a privilege, and praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Because I show a lot of my clients this little pie chart, right? And it shows what all determines your overall health. 40% of what determines someone's overall health, is social and economic factors. Did I grow up, in a neighborhood where my family could afford enough food to eat?
Yeah.
10% of this of your overall health is your genes and your biology. So what was handed down to me, right? And the Lord is sovereign over that too. And he can use even my genetic legacy in a way to be a part of my story and honor him and glorify him for his glory and my good. 10% is physical environment. Did I grow up, with clean air and clean water and things like that. 10% is clinical care. So do I have access to a doctor? And then 30% is health behaviors. And that's going to be, am I sleeping enough? Do I have good stress management? How am I eating? How am I exercising? Blah, blah, blah. So if we're looking at this, the majority of the pie chart is stuff that the Lord has literally just let us be born into and given by his mercy: social and economic privilege, genes, biology, physical environment, clinical care. And then we have our piece of it, which is our health behaviors, which is a little bit, right? So, I mean, there's our part to steward, and then there's all this other stuff. Whereas the world would like to communicate to us it's completely in your control,
right.
and that is not true.
No, not at all.
And I will say, as a dietitian, it's really sweet because we, again, by the world are kind of taught, you have to micromanage your body and, follow this YZ plan. But the Lord really did wire us with hunger and fullness cues, a genuine desire for multiple types of foods. We're just probably not very used to listening to those cues.
Yeah, sure.
We probably don't know how, right? And we do live in a fallen world, so we are responsible for stewarding those things. But one thing I like to say is behaviors that are truly healthy honor all the dimensions of health, right? So there's physical health, emotional health, relational health, spiritual health, environmental health, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, spiritual health is the primary importance for us as believers.
Sure, yeah.
And in that I always go back to Proverbs 3:5-8. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. So number one thing is is my heart am I pursuing spiritual health in my heart? Because then my other priorities are going to align, right?
Yeah.
So like, for example, like I think I'm doing this super like, healthy plan or whatever, but it's getting in the way of my you laughing at me.
The way you said plan. I have this plan.
I have a plan to get healthy. But yeah, okay, plan. But let's say that plan is like keeping me from engaging in like family dinner because I have to eat my special like diet thing over here, or like it's affecting my mental health because I must do this and it's all I can think about, then like that's out of alignment. So behaviors that are truly healthy, like do honor most like all the dimensions of health at once. It's balanced, it's spontaneous, it's nourishing, it's adequate. Like, and again, like this is a conversation for another day, dietitian conversation, but like we need a variety of things, and the Lord gave those to us.
Well, I love the idea that anything that consumes you is the thing that you worship.
Yes.
You may say that it's Jesus, and if we are consumed by him, then he is most important in our life than everything that he says about everything, and he knows everything about everything. And Matt likes to say, right when we take communion on Sunday mornings, he knows everything about everything and everything about us. And if that is true and we are submitted to his lordship, then being consumed by thinking about him all the time is actually a rightly ordered way of living. But anything or anyone else that consumes us is an idol, and it will destroy us. And it doesn't matter if it's how we view ourselves. It doesn't matter if it's our relationship to food. It doesn't matter if it's social media. It doesn't matter if it's anger because I'm right and you're wrong. And anything that is consuming us is the thing that we hold most dear. Yeah. Even if we're not choosing it in that moment, if it's just hardwired into us and ingrained into us. And the Christian life, again, going back to Romans 12:1 and 2, is about being transformed from the old way, being transformed from putting on the old clothes and putting on the new. We have been declared, or we have been given the Paul says adoption as sons. But man, so oftentimes we act like we're not sons. We act like we're not daughters. Okay. I don't really know where to go from here. We've had such a rich conversation so far. Does that make you think about in terms of taking our conversation in a direction at this point in terms of how you want to navigate the rest of this podcast? I do think, just out of the gate, it makes me think we, like so many things on this podcast, we should talk about these things. Whether that be at our dining room tables with family or be in our community groups or in one-on-one conversations. I don't know. Any thoughts on that in terms of? Well, just in terms of how we don't talk about it. Body image. As I think about it, I love the picture of we're made in God's image and we're all made uniquely. There is so much that goes into that. So I guess, all right, I'm going to take the question here from my seat, my perspective as executive pastor on staff at a church. How do you think the church could create a healthier culture around these types of conversations in terms of whether it's ongoing dialogue or discipleship opportunities or just in general stances on and positions on being made in the image of God, and how our bodies as something that the Lord's giving us to steward is a part of our holistic discipleship? Yeah. I don't know. Let's speak to that for a minute.
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. Yeah, I feel like if I could even create like a vision statement for like how the church like could be with this. Like I would love like for the church to become, and like that means all of us, right? Like a safe place where bodies are honored instead of critiqued. Because like we do it, we all do it to ourselves, and it can be in the form of, lighthearted, self-deprecating, comments to ourselves even. But But I think avoiding the self-deprecating comments, avoiding glorifying a certain body type, right?
Yes.
Really speaking to the creativity and the diversity that the Lord has created in all of us. I think like the church does an excellent job of modeling gratitude for food. And I think just modeling that gratitude for our bodies as well.
Yeah.
It would be so cool, I think, to have a body of believers where we really can be transformed by the renewing of our mind, to see our bodies as instruments for the Lord's glory, rather than, ornaments that gain us approval in the world.
Yeah.
That's a cheap prize, truly. The approval piece, but knowing that I was formed by the hand of God. He literally made my exact shape, my exact form, my taste preferences, my down to the color of my hair and my eyes and all of those things. I was made to reflect the Lord's glory. Show me, Lord, what does it look like to steward this body? And the fallen parts of this body too, Lord. I pray that you'd help me to know you more through them, even that too. Help me to, know how to care for this body in order to do the things that you've called me to do. So all that to say, I think it does start with probably us as the church, and being able to really use that language of just your body is good. It is made in the image of the Lord.
You said something that just kind of is still sticking in my mind and in my heart, that even the places that you don't like, the Lord sees and knows.
Yeah.
The parts of you that you wish were different. I think the Lord in his kindness, for some of us, we may hear that and go, well, I wish there were fewer of them. And then there are maybe others who are sitting here listening going, well, I don't really have any of those. It's at every end of the spectrum is the Lord has given you something to keep you from becoming conceited. And it is good and right that you have both the parts of your body, and it's not just your body, right? It could be a whole host of things, but specifically there are parts about your body that you don't like, and there are parts about your body that you do. And I think the journey of following Jesus is going, well, this is what you've given me. I get one life, I've got one body, I've got one story to live and one story to tell. And so Jesus, help me see you in all of it. Help me see you in the places that I don't necessarily love. The last question that you and I discussed in terms of how to navigate the kind of the landing of this, because we could go, I feel like you could talk about this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I could ask all kinds of questions in terms of even getting down into the science of so many things. Obviously, the hope of this podcast and of this series is to give testimony to the Lord's goodness and kindness, that because of what Jesus has done, it is because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the power of the saints' testimony that we overcome the patterns of this world, that we overcome the enemy of this world. And so part of that, I think, is the telling of it, which you and I are getting to do, but there are many who are listening to this conversation. So if we were to envision someone sitting here at this table with us, and in terms of a way to encourage them, maybe that someone struggles deeply with shame, or the way they view themselves has been riddled with shame. The idea of what encouragement would you give them, it actually makes me think, and I'd love for you to figure out on the fly here, I did not give you any warning of this, I'd love for you to figure out how to tie in the story of, I think it was your roommate that you shared on stage at our annual members night. We're recording this in March of 2026. In January of this year, you shared a very brief testimony of the Lord's kindness through her. And this is not, again, not moralization on whether or not you should or shouldn't get dressed up to go to church on Sunday morning. But I just think the what stuck with me in the story of that was such an encouragement to so many. I've had so many people come up to me and tell me that about your story, and some of them don't even remember your name. They just remember, the person on stage that shared that story. Can you weave that together with encouragement for someone who's struggling and wrestling?
Oh, that is so good. Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Okay.
that's so good. Okay. Yes. Well, for just, I guess, to refresh on
Yeah, go back and tell the story for sure.
Yeah. So this was, I was not living in Alabama. It doesn't super matter at the time, but I was going to a church, and I had a friend there who I noticed never wore makeup on Sunday morning. And like I shared, I really didn't think that much of it until one day we did get into some sort of conversation. And basically what she shared with me was that, actually I don't wear makeup on Sunday for a reason, because I don't wear makeup around my family, and my church is my family. So I don't wear makeup on Sunday to remind me that I'm coming home to family. And that has always stuck with me, because that is how it should be when we are coming home to church, to our church family. We don't have to put on a face. We don't have to put on a front. We don't have to be anything other than who we are and how we are. And we're loved, and that's enough. And that's really sweet. I love your question, Lee, because that's great how that all ties in together. Because I do think it's the same with our bodies, right? When we come, yes, into the presence of other believers, but most importantly, into the presence of our Lord. We don't have to put on a face with him. We don't have to put on a certain, he's not disappointed with your body. You are his creation. You are already fully loved, and he knows you. He sees your heart. And I just think sometimes maybe maybe that perfecting my body is almost a form of makeup, right? A form of hiding, a form of the fig leaf, right? Adam and Eve putting on that fake covering that we think will hide our shame. But I think the deeper question is what am I ashamed of? If I'm using this, and the Lord calls Adam and Eve out of hiding, says that's not going to cover you. I will cover you with my blood. And I just think it's kind of the same thing. If I'm trying to cover up my shame with creating this perfect body image, the Lord very much is calling you out, calling us out, saying come out of hiding, let me cover you, and let me cover that shame and that hurt and that exposed feeling. And I just think too, just in that lieu of hiding, I think about, I learned this verse this year and I thought it was so good. Psalm 32, 3-5, it says, "When I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy upon me. My strength was sapped as in the heat of summer. Then I acknowledged my sin to you and did not cover up my iniquity. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave the guilt of my sin." And I just love this verse because keeping silent about our struggles or our shame or whatever it is, and just trying to cover it up with other stuff, whether our figurative makeup, right? Our bones waste away. We feel so heavy, and alone inside. It's such a terrible feeling. But then when we come to the Lord and we don't cover it up anymore, confess to him, he completely washes us clean. And it's the best feeling ever, to come to him and, know that we are enough. We are loved, and we don't need that makeup.
That's good. That's good. Well, I think we could go on and on, but it's just so good to know that as believers, like, he knows our frame. We're wired and made in such a way that glorifies him, and stewarding that body, stewarding the way we've been made, it matters tremendously to him. It matters to us. It matters in terms of our overall health. It matters to the church. The church desperately needs believers who believe, you know what, God's given me a certain way of going through this world, and it is interwoven into the life of this church. And so to pretend to be something I'm not or someone I'm not is not helpful to anyone.
No. And it's like he created us to be us
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well,
So good.
I'm going to end it there. Thank you for being here. This has been so much fun. I am sure we will do this again one day, but thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was a joy.
On behalf of the Grace Auburn Church family, thank you for listening to the Grace Auburn Church podcast. If you'd like more information about partnering with us and our mission or ways that you can get connected, please go to our website, graceauburn.church.